Good morning and Merry Christmas to all. Welcome to ixamBee. So, as you know, that we are discussing the RBI, the pattern of exam, the scheme of things. So, continuing with this, so today we'll discussing the strategy for RBI Grade B, General Awareness Phase 1 and ESI Phase 2. So, kindly give me a heads up in case I'm audible and visible to you so that I can continue. So I'm waiting for the heads up. Do let me know. Okay, seems that I'm audible. So chalo, good to go then. Take it. So as you are familiar with the pattern of the examination for phase 1, still I'm just giving you a gist of it. So as you can see in your screen, so the total marks is 200 for prelims and the total time is 120 minutes. So which comprises of 4 sections, that is quants, English, reasoning and general awareness. So the quant section is 30 marks and the total time is 25 minutes, while for that of English is total marks is 30, total time is 25 minutes again. Reasoning is 60 marks, the time allotted is 45 minutes. The general awareness section is 80 marks and the time allotted is 25 minutes. So however, given the full marks and given the paucity of time, so you won't be able to attempt too much in quants and reasoning for that matter. So that effectively reduces the total marks, or the total marks which you can score is somewhere around 40 to 45 marks in reasoning, and quants is effectively 20 to 25 marks, assuming that you are good in both of these. So, so just to give you an idea about the 2019 cutoff phase 1, uh, so the paper is basically prelims phase is divided into 2 phases: calculation based, so which comprises of reasoning. The cutoff was 15 marks out of 60 marks, while that for quants was 7.5 marks out of the total of 30 marks. And going for the non-calculation based, which is comprises of the English paper and the general awareness. So English cutoff was 7.5 marks out of 30 marks again, and GA was 20 marks out of 80 marks. So this is the basic you have to score in each and every section. So the game doesn't end here. So the total cutoff was 122 marks in phase 1. So total score based on minimum cutoff. So if you're adding the total of the minimum cutoff of every section, that comes around 50 marks, right? And the total cutoff, overall cutoff was 122 marks. So that means you have to score additional 72 marks. So the key is to maximize your marks. So how will you maximize your marks? So you have to good in, I believe, 3 sections, maybe average in the 4th one, but the 3 sections should definitely include the GA section. Without scoring a GA section, you will not be able to pass this examination. So yes, the phase 2 and the phase 3 cutoffs. So you can see year wise phase 2 and phase 3 cutoffs. So which the phase 3 includes the interview as well. So 2015 was 197 to 44 and so on and so forth. However, the point to be noted is the difference between column 2 and 3, that is what is the minimum you have to score in case you are just at the bottom line in case of marks allotted in phase 2. So you have to score 47 to make it to the final list in 2015, 48.75 in 2016, 49 out of 50 in 2017, 47.25 2018, and 2019 it was 45 marks. And these marks are not so easy to get. Well, it's very subjective. It depends on a lot of factors apart from your knowledge. So the mantra is to score as high as possible in phase 2 itself. So yes, to score, not to be on just at the bottom of the list in terms of marks, going by the phase 2 marks. So you have to be somewhat quite above, better than the average ones. So just to increase the chances to make it to the final list. Okay. So yes, so what are the common problems faced by the students? So information overload. Yes, there are plethora of sources. The students are confused. Which information should we go for? Which information should we ignore? So how to go about the preparation? They know that they are preparing for RBI Grade B, but the matter is how should we go about it? We don't know. We don't have any specific timeline as a specific part to crack it. So which sources to refer to? So there are again multiple of sources given the information overload. So the student is confused between which sources we should refer to. So focus only on studying and lack of mock tests. So yes, the students are somewhat afraid of, as in giving the mock test and attempting the mock test. So they are more focused towards the studying and studying and studying. So the first one being not a holistic preparation. So what are the solutions to the problems faced by the students? So knowledge of the syllabus. The first and foremost thing, you should be knowledgeable about the syllabus. What is the syllabus? What is the requirement? What is the RBI seeking in terms of syllabus and knowledge? So you should be aware of this. Coming to the second aspect, so you have to be thorough with the previous year papers. So yes, you should go through the previous year papers to understand what are the type of questions being asked in RBI. So we at ixamBee do have a section called previous papers, so under which you can attempt the previous year papers. So keeping the sources limited. So rather than referring to too many sources, keep your sources limited. That will help. So practice. Yes, practice is the key. Not only learning and learning and learning and reading, practice should be the key as well. And the fifth is revise. So after practicing, you will come across definitely your weak areas and all. So you should revise as well, focusing more on your weak areas and all. So don't chase perfection. So we as students generally strive for perfection. So you should understand that nobody possibly can score 100 out of 100 in ESI or FM for that matter. So the only thing is you should be thorough with this. You don't have to chase perfection, right? So even you're scoring 85 and 90, that will suffice. So we as students generally tend to dig a lot deeper than what is required in the examination from each and every topic. So while doing that, we generally tend to, as in, forget the brownie points. So yes, study holistically. So the problem is with student is that they see the examination phases rather than studying it holistically. So while you are preparing for phase 1 GA, you are preparing for phase 2 ESI FM as well, and that too, this knowledge will aid you in your writing of a descriptive English, right? And moreover, this knowledge of phase 1 GA and all will help you in answering the interview questions as well. So you should be uh, completely thorough with this, the basics ones. You are preparing for the exam, not phases. And get out of your mental blockage that I'm not from economics background, I'm not from commerce background, and also it is difficult for me to crack the exam. No, historically students from engineering background have been cracking this examination, so if they can, why not you? So you just need to have faith in yourself that you will be able to crack it. So coming to GA portion, so GS and ESI, the static portion, and government schemes, report indices, committees, and news base. So basically, it is difficult to define what is included in GA. However, the most definable thing is I've included in the form of flowchart. So basically, it comprises of two parts: static portion as well as dynamic portion. So dynamic portion covers the government schemes, the reports and indices, committees, and the news based. So static ESI, phase 1 and 2. So according to notification by RBI, so what is the syllabus of economic and social issues? So it comprises of growth and development, poverty alleviation and employment generation, sustainable development and environmental issues, economic reforms in India, monetary and fiscal policy, globalization, balance. So you can see at your screen. So what are the requirements in terms of syllabus being asked by RBI in its notification? So just delving further, giving you a detail. So what should we cover? The important things which you should not miss while covering this syllabus. So speaking in terms of growth and development, so you should be thorough with what are the measurement of growth, what are GDP, what is GNP, what is NP, nominal real GDP, what is the difference between nominal real GDP, what is GDP deflator, what is the GVA concept, how is it different from GDP. So what are the methods of estimating national income? There are three methods, so you should be thorough which are the methods. So how do we calculate the per capita income? So what is the per capita income of India? And according to reports by WB and all. So how do you define human development? What are the components of human development? So what is gross national happiness? Which country was the first to bring in this concept of gross national happiness? So this list is not exhaustive but merely indicative. So while reading through this, so you have to as in make sure that you're not missing on these topics at least. So poverty alleviation and employment generation. So types of poverty, reasons and solutions related to India, committees on poverty, be it Tendulkar committee, the Rangarajan committee, what is the poverty line as per India, so what are the types of employment, measures of unemployment, the calculation of working age population, the unemployment, how do we calculate the unemployment rates, so the institutions releasing data for India in terms of poverty and unemployment, so what do you mean by demographic dividend. So these are very important topics which ideally you should cover. And yes, so coming to economic reforms in India, so industrial and labor policy. So general idea about 5 years plan. So when I'm talking about a general idea, you don't have to be very thorough about each and every plan. So the basic one, like what was the Mahalanobis model, in which 5 year plan it was included. So what are types of planning, be it decentralized, the centralized, the genesis of Niti Aayog, some idea about the planning commission, erstwhile planning commission, right? So what do you mean by industrial licensing? So what are the industries which are still reserved for the public sector? So what was the LPG reform? What do you mean by LPG? How is it beneficial? What are the implications? So what do you mean by SEZ? Which acts cover this SEZ? The FDI limits in various sectors, the new labor codes which are in news. So the monetary and fiscal policy. So expansionary, what do you mean by expansionary fiscal policy, contractionary fiscal policies, what are the tools of it, so what are the types of budget, the surplus budget, the deficit budget, what are deficit, what are different kind of deficit, be primary deficit, revenue deficit and so on. What is FRBM Act, which was a committee which has given this FRBM Act, what are targets under FRBM Act, so what is Finance Commission, under which section of Constitution does Finance Commission comes into play, who appoints Finance Commission, what is the tenure of Finance Commission, and what about the 15th Finance Commission, the recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission, the chairman of it. So qualitative and quantitative tools by RBI. So what are the tools at the disposal of by RBI to as in regulate the monetary supply in economy. So what is MPC, which section of RBI governs this MPC formation, so who are the members of MPC, how is MPC appointed, and inflation targeting. So what are different types of inflation, be it disinflation, deflation, inflation, hyperinflation. So inflation targeting is basically which is the committee which gave us the inflation targeting, which was the first country in the world to go for inflation targeting, which is the RBI committee which was formed for inflation targeting, and what was its recommendations, what are different kinds of chances of RBI, be it accommodative, neutral, etc. The RBI MPC meetings, the highlights of the RBI MPC meeting, be it the latest repo rates, reserve repo rate, and so on, and budget and economic survey. So what do you mean by balance of payment? So types of accounts under balance of payment, be it current, capital. What do you mean by forex reserve? What are the components of forex reserve? So what do you mean by balance of trade, and how is it different from balance of payment? What are the nature of capital flows? What are the nature of current account? So which are the kind of debt creating capital flows, which are not? So you have to be historically thorough with this BOP crisis. What did it lead to, this BOP crisis? What do you mean by account convertibility? Which account convertibility we have in India, be it capital account or current account? The committees formed and the recommendations around it. So current foreign trade policy of India, so which is a governing body of FTP in India. So what are the targets set in the FTP? So yes, international economic institutions, so be it World Bank, IMF, WTO, ADB, AIB, BRICS, RCEP, etc. So how much current affairs should we cover? Ideally it should be 6 months. So coming to the demographic trends, so what do you mean by urbanization? The types of urbanization, how do you define the urban agglomerate? How do you define urban agglomerate? The literacy, the population, the migration. What are different types of migration? Who are the refugees? How is it different from asylum seeker? So what are the sex ratio of India? So you have to thorough with the facts like SACC 2011 census, PLFS, that is periodic labor force survey, which gives all data around the unemployment, employment, the worker population ratio, right? So coming to health and education, so what do you mean by malnutrition? How is it infant mortality rate measured? What is the maternal mortality rate? What is the India's national health policy? How do you see the national nutrition mission? Right. So what are the different education based surveys, the university rankings, the RTE Act? You have to thorough. There was a question in RTE Act as well historically. What is the national education policy? So recently India has come up with the national education policy 2020. You have to be thorough with it. So coming to the Indian political systems and social systems, so what are the fundamental rights? What is the preamble of the constitution? What are the directive principles? So what are the constitutional provisions for positive discrimination, for upliftment of the backward class of people, reservation of SC/STs, and so on? So what do you mean by multiculturalism? How do you define gender equality? What is gender budgeting, which was the first country in the world to bring this concept of gender budgeting? So what are the types of social movements? So be it Narmada Andolan, etc. So in terms of social movements, you don't have to go very deep into it. Just a very idea about what was the history in terms of who led this movement, what was all it about, which was the state involved in it. So I think then you're good to go. So coming to central government schemes. So why should we cover government schemes? So yes, increasing weightage in the exams. So in 2019 exam, there were a lot of questions based on government schemes, and they were easy in terms of factual. They were factual, especially when I'm talking about phase one. So the government schemes basically makes a difference between a selected student and non-selected one. So everyone is covering GA, the news-based one, but what about the government schemes? So you have to be very thorough about for those government schemes. For example, I'm giving you an example. So example related to PM Swanidhi scheme. So you can see it in your screen and read it. So how will a normal student read? Like he will read cover to cover and line by line. I will give later show an example. How should this news be read? So what should be the priority while covering scheme? So so you have to as in be thorough with the short form and the full form as well. Generally in the exam they don't give you the full form of the any scheme. They ask you the short form. So the ministry and the implementing agency of any scheme. What are the objectives, the importance of the scheme? So in which year it was launched? What was the budgetary allocation for the scheme? So the benefits under the scheme and the duration of the scheme, be it 3 years, 5 years, 1 year. So what are the targets under the scheme? That it intends to cover how many people, right? So what are the eligibility criteria, as in to for the scheme for people for a person to be eligible for the scheme? So yes, just continue with the previous example of how should this PM Swanidhi scheme should be read. So the underlined one are the important ones. So PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi, PM Swanidhi, that is the full form as well as the short form. You should be thorough with this full form and short form as well. A central sector scheme by which ministry? Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. What are the objectives of it? To facilitate working capital loan up to 10,000 to incentivize regular repayment. So launched in 2020. So microcredit facility at affordable rate for street vendors. This is basically the importance of the scheme. So what are the targets under this? 50 lakh street vendors will benefit, and the timeline, speaking of the timeline, before March 24, 2020, SEDB will be the implementing agency. Collateral free working capital loan up to 10,000. In case of timely early repayment, interest subsidy of 7%. That's it. The more focused you are in terms of your preparation, the better it will be while you are revising your content. So now you will be able to appreciate what I talked about earlier in my slides, which are the things we need to cover in terms of government schemes. So should we focus only on schemes in news recently? Let's talk about it. So basically there is an order, a priority. So first you need to focus on newly launched schemes, the old scheme in news, then comes the flagship schemes of the government, for example, the Manrega scheme, the Namami Ganga scheme, PM Ujjwala scheme and all. So these are the flagship schemes of the government. So you should be thorough with this scheme irrespective of whether they are in news or not. So relatively older schemes. So if you're done with this three, so you can definitely go to the older scheme. Again, the bandwidth is too large. I cannot define it specifically. The fourth one depends on how much time you have at your hand. Okay. So state government schemes. Again, why should we be prepared? To have an edge over other aspirants. Very clearly, this is quite untouched by students because they are somewhat busy preparing central government schemes. But however, the examiners are asking the questions out of the state government scheme, so you have to be again thorough with this as well. So they are easy questions, yes. The best part is they are easy question. You know it or you don't know it. So what are the challenges involved while preparing for state government schemes? So yes, there are too many schemes and difficult to remember. So these are basically the two challenges which a student encounters while preparing for state government schemes. So what should be the smart strategy then while preparing for state government schemes? So first, speaking of the meeting challenges part, for too many schemes you need to prioritize which schemes you need to cover first. And when it comes to, yes, you are not able to recall, remember, you need to revise. That is the only key here. So in terms of prioritizing the schemes, so what schemes do you need to cover in terms related to state government? The finance related, which is talking about the financial inclusion for that matter. So scheme winning awards and all. So the state scheme winning recognition awards at the national or the international level, you should be thought of this as well. So any scheme which are having a social and economic aspect to it, be it creating employment or reducing poverty, and first state in the country to launch any kind of scheme. So this is important. As for example, recently MP has launched the cow cabinet. It has also launched the happiness department in the earlier year. So you should be thorough with this. So coming to reports and indices. So what should be prepared? Again, the question lies: what should be prepared while we are preparing for reports and indices? So first and the foremost thing is which institution has released this index, and the static part going with this key where the institution headquartered and who is the current president or chairman of that institution. So how many indicators, parameters have been used for assessment or ranking of the countries in the report or index. So which is the country at the topmost and the bottom, and what is India's rank, and any growth forecast for that matter in terms of India's economic growth, and important details around it made in the report. So basically the important details will around India will serve you in the phase 2 preparation, where generally it is more detailed, the questions are more detailed. So basically they can give you three options regarding quoting the statement of the report, and you may be asked to as an answer it which of the statement is correct. So you should be thorough with this. Any important aspect related to India talked about in the report. So coming to important committees. Again, what should be prepared? The question lies, the crux lies, what should be prepared? There are too many committees. So should you prepare each and everything? No, you should not. Then you're not expected to as I remember each and everything. So first and the foremost thing you should remember is who is the head of the committee or the chairman of the committee. So which ministry or institute has formed this committee? So what are the number of members in this committee? So what is the purpose of this committee? Basically the terms of reference of any committee for that matter. Just the basic purpose. You don't have to go through all the terms and references of any committee. Just the basic purpose. What is related to, that's all about it. And what are the major recommendations of the committee in case the committee is important. So again, news based, where should be prepared from? So ideally students generally have two options. So from, be it you can read the newspaper, the magazines, the PIBs, the reports, various reports released by the different institution, or ideally you should go for the weekly and monthly magazines of any institute. For example, ixamBee has a Bpedia magazine, right? So coming to the Bpedia, so as you must be aware of this, so there's a tab called general awareness in our website. So if you click onto this, so they are weekly and monthly Bpedia. So basically the weekly ones have more detail, the monthly one is basically a more concise one. So students who are facing a somewhat paucity of time can generally refer to the monthly ones, ignoring the weekly ones. However, it is recommended that you go through the weekly ones and revise it through the monthly ones. So yes, so there are different sections in our Bpedia which we cover. So there's finance and banking, economy, national, international news, in state schemes or news, science and tech, agri and rural development, defense, events, appointments, awards and rewards, important days, obituaries, books, and sports. So basically covering anything and everything which is important for your exam. So what are the books and materials for reference for ESI? So according to the notification released, the recommended books, you can see it on screen. So there are various books and magazines, newspaper, so you can go through them. Or you can definitely refer to course material of ixamBee. It's totally your choice, whatever suits you. So how ixamBee can help? So definitely ixamBee has an expert faculty who have a domain expert, have vast vast experience in their domains. So there are people who have cracked this exams, be it RBI, SEBI, SEDB, etc. and all. You can see it on your screen. So we have courses for English as well as Hindi courses. So you can see questions covered in ixamBee's RBI course, 90% overall coverage, so which is breaking down to ESI and FM. So 57 out of 65 questions were asked, that is 88% coverage, approximately 90% coverage, and 60 out of 65 questions were asked in, that is makes up to 92% coverage, right? For any query, you can write us to at hello@ixambee.com. So, and you can definitely go to our website and check the Christmas offer currently we are offering. So this is all from my side. In case you have any query, you can ask. I'm waiting for your query in case you have any. So I believe there's no query at your end. So yes, Sneha is asking, Sir, Kurukshetra Yojana, which one to read? So speaking in terms of RBI, Yojana is more relevant for your exam as compared to Kurukshetra. So any other thing you want to ask apart from this, what Sneha has asked? Otherwise, I will wrap it up. I believe there are no queries. Just waiting for a minute. Otherwise, I will wrap it up. So Sheila is asking, please take one session after that. So just to answer your question, Sheila, as in we at ixamBee do have many faculty who have already worked in RBI. So whether I am taking a session or not doesn't matter. You will have that experience at ixamBee. So I hope to see many of you cracking RBI next year. So all the best from my side. Study well.